I finally get a chance to take a brief look at the CSEC English B Paper 1 for January 2024. Thank you so much for your patience. Let's get straight into it. We start with Tolroy and Moses, which is, at this point, this is the theme song for CSEC English B. We've seen this passage so many times, but best practice is, even when you're very familiar with a passage, you still read it through. So I won't be reading it aloud for you guys. Just pause here, read it yourself, and then I'll let you attempt the questions. And after each segment, I'll give you my suggested answers with brief explanations. So here is the passage. Pause and read. All right, very good. And we have questions 1 through 8. So you can pause here and attempt these, and then I'll take you through them. All right, let's get it. The setting is most likely a train station. Number 1. B. How do we know that? We have the passage over here on the left. At the top here, at the very beginning, it says Moses is in Waterloo Station, London. Right? He's in the station. And there's a confused milling mob of West Indians waiting for the boat train. Waiting for a train in a station. Where could you be? And we see things about arrivals and departures, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely a station. The other options don't make sense. This isn't an airport. They wouldn't be waiting on a train at the airport. And it wouldn't be an old boat train. They wouldn't be waiting for a boat train in a boat train. That wouldn't make sense. And this is definitely not a house. Alright, number 2. Moses' description of Tolroy's dwelling as a 2 before, line 9, indicates what? Line 9. All you fellas really have guts, yes, Tolroy. Where are you going to put she in that 2 before you have in Horror Road? So clearly Moses is kind of joking around. He's saying, Tolroy, you're expecting your mother. Do you really have space for your mother? You have a little 2 before. We know 2 before is a piece of board. So clearly that's not the literal size of the house, but it's indicating that it's a very small dwelling, very cramped, very tight, not enough space to welcome anybody into. So the answer would be D, a small confined space. Number 3, the best explanation of the dramatic effect of the loudspeaker mentioned in the second stage direction, lines 20 to 21, is that the stage direction would be here. The station loudspeaker announces the arrival of the boat train. An English reporter comes up to them. So they're in the station. They've been having some conversations, waiting on people to arrive, and then the announcer announces that the boat train is going to arrive. Clearly, the feeling of expectancy is being increased. Now we know that, all right, something's going to happen. A train is going to come, and you know what's going to happen next. Number 4. Which of the following lines contributes most to humor in the extract? And this one is C. What you want? Belgravia, Park Lane. Maybe you could put you up in Dorchester. And why is this funny? What's happening in these lines? Following the conversation here from the top, we have Tolroy. We have Moses here, who is meeting some fella named Henry. And we have Tolroy, who is expecting to meet his mother. Of course, Moses is indicating that, Tolroy, your house is too small. Of course, Tolroy knows he needs to look for a bigger place and asks for some ideas. Moses suggests that Tolroy speaks with one of his Jamaican countrymen who is seeking tenants. Tolroy isn't so fond of that idea because he believes he won't get a very big place from that tenant. He believes he won't be getting a very big, spacious place from that landlord. So basically, he's going to be charged a lot of money for a small space. Moses suggests somebody else, and Tolroy says, don't dare too grim. And then Moses now hits back, well, you don't want this, you don't want that. What do you want? All these big fancy places, right? If we look down here, we see that affluent neighborhoods, that's referring to, should be Belgravia. Yeah, so Belgravia and Park Lane, these are affluent neighborhoods, rich places, and the Dorchester is a luxurious hotel. So you don't want these normal, affordable places. What do you want? Like, the best of the best, big hotels and rich people houses. That's what you want. So clearly, there's some sarcasm and some humor there being poked at Tolroy. And none of these other lines is very funny. There's not much competition there. Number 5. The expression waiting like a hawk for tenants is most effective in doing what? That would be D, reinforcing the exploitative nature of the business, right? So we go back to lines 11 and 12 over here. Look, one of your countrymen over there waiting like a hawk for tenants. So he's just, we know hawks are birds of prey. They're quite vicious. They just snatch whatever they want and tear it to bits and eat it. And that is how this person is just waiting to get new clients, new tenants to overcharge and to rip off. So just like a hawk would exploit its prey, this person is waiting to exploit anybody who has a little bit of money to spend. 6. Which of the following are used to indicate that the extract portrays a Caribbean experience? We can see the language and diction indicating that. Line 5, who you meeting? Yeah. Some fella named Henry. Boy, expecting my mother. So you can see it's not really a specific dialect. It's not patois or anything like that. But it's the language and diction is kind of suggesting that these aren't Englishmen, for example. Yeah, where are you going to put she? That's quite a Caribbean way of speaking. Where are you going to put she? And two before is kind of something a Caribbean person would say as well. And then we do have this hint here in the diction, Jamaican countrymen. So if Moses is referring to this person as Tolroy's Jamaican countryman, then Tolroy should be Jamaican. And as we go down, we see more evidence or more hints that this is portraying a Caribbean experience. At the very least, it becomes very clear that the main characters in the extract are Caribbean people, and nothing else really is competing. Sea might seem appealing, but hurricanes can happen anywhere, not just in the Caribbean. Alright, number 7, one of the major themes in the extract is, we talked about exploitation just a little bit, and there's more exploitation in the passage, and obviously we have migration, right? These people are in London and they're from the Caribbean, and they're expecting, or at least one of these guys is expecting other family members from the Caribbean. So we have migration, we have exploitation happening with the guy who overcharges people for very tiny places, and also the conversation with the reporter does indicate some exploitative nature of England, and also some condescension from the reporter here. This is the only possible option. No need to go too deeply into it. And this is a passage we're tired of breaking down. Well, I am tired of breaking down. Number 8, Moses' response to the reporter suggests that Moses is being sarcastic. Let's look at that little conversation very briefly. A reporter comes in. "Excuse me, sir, have you just arrived from Jamaica?" Moses isn't very excited to engage, but he answers, "Yes, I'm from the Echo," says the reporter, some news outlet. "Would you like to tell me what the conditions are like?" Immediately a slightly passive-aggressive question. The reporter kind of assuming that conditions are bad in Jamaica. Why would he ask this particular question? But Tolroy is enjoying this. Maybe he knows that Moses is going to act up, right? And Moses is sarcastic here. The situation is desperate as usual. And he mentions some big hurricane that might not have happened. We don't know. And then if you look here, we realize it's actually sarcasm, right? "Well, I was in that hurricane. You could ask my friend here if you think I lie. I was sitting down in my mansion." Really? "When suddenly I look up and see the sky. You know what happened?" "What?" "Hurricane blew the roof clean off. Banana plantation." So he's just coming up with this sort of ridiculous but also sort of stereotypical story, just to mess with the reporter's head. And the reporter I'm not sure if the reporter is in on the sarcasm. Perhaps not. Perhaps the reporter is trying to change the subject a little bit, or clap back at the sarcasm by asking more pointed questions. "Why are so many Jamaicans coming to England? Do you believe that the streets are paved with gold?" "I don't know about all of them, but sometimes in night I see as if the Bayswater Road sparkling with diamonds. But then you look, in truth you see it's only stones and gravel mixed up with asphalt. Do you know of any London street paved with gold?" Bam! Nice sarcasm there, hitting back at the reporter who, has to run away. He runs away from that. Alright, next 2. Take a look at these. Pause here, answer. All right, Tolroy's reaction to his family's arrival is best described as, and this is kind of a toughish question because there is some anxiety there. You could say there's some anticipation, but amazement and confusion are the most accurate. Let's take a look. So, after the conversation with the reporter who runs away, Moses is saying, watch him, watch the reporter, as if he's gonna go and try to bother that family coming off the train. Tolroy, in consternation, this is kind of perplexity, confusion, and it could also indicate some anxiety, right? He notices that that's his mother, that look like my mother, and Tanti, and Agnes, and Louis, and the two children. So his whole family has come. He's quite confused. Why are they here? This could be considered amazement. It can also be considered confusion, the consternation here. Let me read the actual definition for consternation. Amazement or horror that confounds the faculties and incapacitates for reflection, terror, combined with amazement, dismay. So yeah, we have amazement coming in here and some confusion as well. In the stage direction, in the actual description here in brackets, and of course in the reaction. Ma, look, me over here, as he gets near them, panting. What is all this? Look at this question, indicating confusion. He's not sure why they're all here. He expected only his mother. And look at this, in a daze. He's in a daze. He's so confused. So it's not so much that he is anxious. He hasn't reached that point yet where he has processed the shock enough to be anxious. He's still in shock. He's still confused. He doesn't know what's going on. So yeah, amazement and confusion. That should be it. Number 10, how do the stage directions in line 42, chuckling, and line 44, in consternation, function as an effective guide to the action on stage? This is another question that's a little tricky. The answer is they shift the mood from being carefree to one of anticipation. Now you might be saying, but for number 9, why wouldn't you choose B if there's some anticipation? Well, you could say he's anticipating the problem that is to come in finding space for his family. But anxiety might be a bit off the mark. It's more amazement than anxiety. So there is some element of anticipation, but it wouldn't be the main thing as compared to the amazement that he feels. So B still wouldn't be perfect here. Shifting from carefree to anticipation is the most accurate of all of these responses we have here. Him chuckling and then, his face changing to that perplexed expression. That doesn't heighten suspense about the family. And it definitely doesn't present an indifferent response, an indifferent emotional response. Because if he were indifferent, he wouldn't be looking so perplexed. And C doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'm not sure how you would argue that there's some suspense being created by the change on his face. There's no more suspense. It's obvious that it's his family, right? Immediately after moving from chuckling to consternation, he notices that it's his whole family coming off. So there's no time, there's no build up, no time for tension or suspense. It's an immediate recognition. He sees what's happening, his face changes, he notices that it's his family. No time for us to have any suspense. So the only thing that we can argue here is that there's a mood shift. First he was carefree, now he's perplexed. Alright, Miss Civilization, another familiar passage. You can pause here. How many pages? Okay, good. 2 pages. You can pause here and read. Alright, let's check some questions. You can pause here and attempt the first 5. Alright, let's get to it. What is happening in lines 1 to 7? Let's see. Lines 1 to 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's line 5, 6, 7. Okay, yeah, about here. It should be clear that the burglars attempt to break into the house and Alice calls the sergeant. It's midnight, the time where when most burglars happen. There's a file scraping on iron, so someone's probably trying to cut through somewhere or something like that. Alice enters carrying a candle. She listens intently, goes to the phone, speaks in a whisper. So obviously she knows that someone is there, or, something is happening. She's calling the sergeant here, and here she says there are 3 men trying to break in. So yeah, obviously the answer is D. Number 12, the statement in line 19, the burglars will be here. I'll see to that. Give the audience the impression that Alice is what? She's definitely confident because she's saying, and right now I'm not locked in here with them. They're locked in here with me. I'm going to make sure that they don't leave. So she's confident, right? She believes that she's able to not only hold them, make sure they don't escape, run away, get away, but she's also confident enough to feel that she can handle dealing with them without getting hurt. And she must have some kind of plan to get this done. We see throughout the passage that she does buy time, she does distract them, she does ensure that they are there. So yeah, smart and confident. And even how she speaks to the sergeant is that exudes confidence as well. All you have to do is get here. All right, 13. Which of the following statements is the best example of irony? That would be D. Alice is more concerned with the intruders waking her mother than they're leaving the house. Very ironic, because if intruders break in, usually if you're a normal person, you would want to get them out. You wouldn't be worried about them waking up somebody. You'd be much more worried about them staying there. So you'd want them to leave. And Alice wants the opposite. She wants them to stay and stick around and idle until the police arrive. And she's so calm and confident that she isn't worried about them leaving. She doesn't want them to leave. Instead, she doesn't want her mother to be woken up, because her mother would panic and trouble would probably ensue from there. So that's quite ironic. The other statements here are not ironic. Alice is very cautious with the intruders instead of being afraid or angry. Being cautious with intruders is not an ironic thing. That's quite expected. And based on Alice's character, it's quite expected that she wouldn't be afraid or angry. The intruders have gotten enough items from the house and are ready to move to another. Not ironic. The intruders are settled in the dining room and ready for the evening meal. This would be ironic, but we know that the intruders aren't very smart, so this is actually in character for them. 14. The best explanation of the dramatic significance of Brady's falling and his insistence on eating before leaving the house is that these actions clearly tell us that he's not a very good burglar. We see down here, he appears at the window and basically on entering, he slips and falls. So he's not very stealthy, doesn't know what he's doing. He's probably quite nervous. And then down here, he has the stupid idea of, even after, getting what he came for, sticking around to eat. That's a bad idea. 15. In which of the following statements does the playwright heighten the tension in the extract? It's going to be A. And the tension is heightened because the only thing Alice is worried about is her mother interacting with the burglars, and that whole exchange, the panic. Her mother would probably, get a heart attack or something like that. So when the mother is coming down, let's go to the lines. Look at Alice's concern here. My mother is asleep upstairs and she's very ill. This is the problem. The mother is very ill. So the sudden distress of dealing with burglars would probably just do her in. And I don't want to wake her. And I don't want you to wake her either. So let's see what happens up here, up in line 12. Up in line 12, right? We know, and look at the dismay here. Alice is quite a cool character, but there's some dismay when she realizes that her mother is coming into the equation. The mother is coming downstairs. Why aren't you in bed? Is anything wrong, Alice? The mother is asking. Is everything okay down here? No, dear, no. I just came down to... And she makes up a lie. Get a book, I forgot. Please go back, dearest. So the tension is very high here, because at this point, the mother could easily interact with the burglars. Maybe she would notice the burglars are there and, get a stroke or something. Or maybe they would use the mother as leverage. Maybe they could... a hostage situation could develop. So many things could go wrong, because Alice wouldn't necessarily be in full control of the situation if her mother were to get involved. So that's very tense stuff. And none of these other options had an intention. We got enough stuff. So wanting to move to another house because they would have gotten enough stuff would actually be releasing some tension, because then we have a chance for the burglars to go away. And that would end the story. And this doesn't do anything at all in terms of tension. And this kind of adds a little bit of tension, I guess. because Alice is kind of being a bit feisty to the burglar, and if the burglar decides to clap back, it could be dangerous. But it's in character, and we get the sense that Alice is in full control. So nothing bad's gonna happen due to that. But when it comes to her mother, yeah, that's a high risk situation. All right, take a look at the next 5. 16. How does light function as contrast in the extract? It's A. The light allows the intruders to see Alice but does not reveal her true intentions. Very nice. So looking down here, you see as she moves about, as Alice moves about, Reddy keeps her well in the light of the lantern. So he's keeping an eye on her, tracking her movements, but the irony is he can see her plainly, but he is blind to what she's up to. She has called the sergeant, the police are on the way, and Alice is just buying time. He cannot see that, even though he's seeing Alice. So the contrast is they can see her physically, but they can't see what she's up to, right? So we have that contrast in what they can and what they cannot see. So they have light, but they're in the dark in terms of not knowing what's going on. 17, lines 47 to 60, so basically from here down to the end. Suggest that Alice's attitude towards the burglars seemed to be B. Undaunted, fearless, and respectful. There is some respect. She's undaunted because she is not threatened by them. She's not afraid. She's not nervous. And she has a plan. She's executing her plan. She's fearless because clearly she's in control of the situation, even though they're the ones with the gun and the numbers. And the respect is a little bit, it's not really a genuine respect, but she is showing them some respect. She's, using words like please, turn it down there, please, and stuff like that. But what she's doing is she's just trying to appease them for long enough until the police arrives. So she doesn't want to get them upset or alerted or anything like that. So she is showing them some respect. She's not cussing them out or anything like that. 18. The tone of the extract can best be described as satiric. In previous years, the answer would have been sarcastic because this was the best option we had. There was no satiric the last time this appeared. But CSEC revised the list of answers, the options, and they noticed that sarcastic is not as good an answer as satiric. So Alice is sarcastic, but the extract is satiric. We usually use sarcastic to describe a character, but satiric to describe the extract, the piece itself. And it's satiric because the whole piece of writing is kind of making fun of the burglars, right? It's poking fun at them, showing us how stupid they are, and it's laced with dramatic irony. We see and know Alice's brilliance, and we see her plan unfolding. They have no idea what's going on, so it's kind of satirizing that whole thing of the stupid burglar breaking in, not knowing what they're walking into. So it's satirical. It's not very accurate to say that the piece is sarcastic. Right? The character is sarcastic, but the piece is satiric. Let me read a definition of satire here. A literary device of writing or art which ridicules its subject often as an intended means of provoking or preventing change or highlighting a shortcoming in the work of another. Humor, irony, and exaggeration are often used to aid this. Yeah, very close fit. 19. Which of the following endings to the incident in the extract would be most plausible? Based on the fact that they're clueless as to what Alice is up to, and they're making themselves at home, relaxing, ready to eat dinner and stuff like that. A is what we would expect to happen in the end. They'll be so engrossed with their dinner and not realize that the police have arrived. B would make sense because Alice has already called the sergeant. We don't know about any maid servants, and Alice's mother already checked downstairs, and she went back up, and they definitely wouldn't be meeting the burglars having dinner. Perhaps if the mother were to come downstairs, she would panic and scream and stuff like that. And D, no, they will not get a chance to leave the house, not with Alice in charge. 20. Which of the following is an appropriate theme for the extract? It would be C. Survival encourages people to be resourceful. Alice needs to be resourceful. She needs to think on her feet and improvise in order to survive this situation and protect her mother, right? So we see the resourcefulness in how she stealthily calls the sergeant, how she finds a way to distract them and buy time, finds a way to let them think they're the ones in control while she's handling the situation herself. Alright, next we have this poem that seems to be about a person watching a bird do bird stuff. So check out the poem and the first couple questions. Okay, 21. The action in the first stanza captures a bird being observed catching and eating a worm. It says here, a bird came down to walk. Someone is watching a bird. He did not know I saw. They were seeing the bird, right? Yeah. He bit an angleworm. So he bit the worm in halves and ate the fellow raw. So that's just literally what's happening. Someone watching a bird eat a worm. 22. Which of the following effects is created in lines 7 to 8 and then hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass? So we have here in stanza 1, the bird viciously ripping a worm in half and hopping aside. Then the bird drinks some water from a blade of grass. And then the bird hops out of the way to let a beetle pass. What is the impression? The impression is that the bird is courteous and thoughtful. Let me just hop out of the way and allow this nice fellow to pass me, right? That's the effect. A and B don't make any sense. D might seem a little close, the sense that the bird prefers to eat worms rather than beetles. The thing is, what we're looking for is not just what might literally be true, but we're looking for the effect created. And the effect is we get a certain impression based on the diction, the language used to let a beetle pass, right? Allow a beetle to pass. So even though we might assume that, well, if the bird wanted to eat the beetle, it could have eaten the beetle, the fact is C is a better answer because it's asking not just about what's literally happened, but about what effect is being had on the reader. And the effect is we get a certain impression, a certain perspective on the bird's personality, if you may. All right, 23. The speaker is most likely a nature lover. They're sitting there for who knows how long, watching a bird eat a worm and drink water and move out of the way for a beetle to pass and stuff like that. So this person clearly loves nature. No indication of anything else. 24. Which of the following statements is the best example of irony in the poem? That would be B. Lines 3 to 4. Lines 3 to 4. When we compare that to lines 7 to 8, which we have here, we see an irony, right? In lines 3 to 4, the bird is a savage, ripping the worm in half. And then we see the opposite behavior with the bird suddenly being kind and courteous, acting like a perfect gentleman. Very ironic, very strong contrast in those impressions of the bird, in those behaviors of the bird. And nothing else here is truly ironic. 25. The main idea in stanzas 3 and 4 would be D. That creatures are suspicious of humans. So in stanzas 1 and 2, a human is watching a bird. And by stanza 3, the bird notices that it's being watched, it seems. He glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all abroad. They looked like frightened beads. Look at that diction. I thought. So the speaker thinks that the bird seems frightened based on how the eyes are darting around. And the bird stirs his velvet head like one in danger, cautious. I offered him a crumb, right? And he unrolled his feathers and rode himself to home. So clearly the bird doesn't feel very safe around the watcher. The bird is suspicious, cautious, feels like it's in danger, feels like it needs to get out of that situation. The diction makes that very clear. 26. Which of the following literary devices is used in the expression? They looked like frightened beads. There we have simile, just comparing two things using as or like. The eyes, looked like frightened beads. 27. The expression he unrolled his feathers in line 15 and rode himself to home in line 16 are effective because, so these two lines, when we imagine a bird unrolling his feathers, the feathers just unfurling and having that graceful kind of majestic movement, and then the softness of the rowing, perhaps the bird's feathers are rowing, through the air, not literally, so the flight appears to be as graceful as something swimming. It's just moving kind of majestically through the air. That's the image I get. So it's a strong C for me. Capture the beauty and elegance of the bird preparing for flight and taking to the skies, right? Unrolled his feathers captures that image, and then the softer home definitely reinforces that. 28. The tone of the poem can best be described as contemplative. We have a person watching a bird, contemplating its movements, its actions, taking keen note of every little thing that happens, right? A very, very reflective, very observant person. And so that is the tone. The other options, they just don't apply at all. There's nothing playful happening. We don't really see any passion, and definitely accusatory would make sense. 29. The poet's use of splashless in line 20 is effective because... So here, the oars divide the ocean, two silver for a seam, or butterflies of banks of noon leap splashes as they swim. This is extending this here. Same images continuing, the same kind of graceful movement, so it would be C. Extends the idea of the easy, steady, noiseless movement of the bird, right? Splashless, so there is no noise in the movement. A splash is a loud noise, and the bird is just continuing to row himself very, very steadily. And D might literally be true, shows birds flying off to the ocean without their wings touching the water. That might be happening. But when we see, when we talk about effectiveness, it's not just about us literally happening. It's by, if the poet does a certain thing, how does it impact our impression or understanding of the poem, right? All right, 30. Which of the following best describes the structure of the poem? This is quite a simple one. We have quatrains, which just means we have 4-line stanzas. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 4, 4. Yeah. Sestet would be 6 lines. Octave would be 8 lines. Couplet would be 2 lines. Quatrains, 4 lines. We have another poem here, The Lace Seller. So take a look at this, read it, and attempt the first few questions. All right, let's go. 31. The first 3 lines of the poem are impactful, mainly because they introduce the character who will feature in the ensuing events. The first 3 lines. There's a woman selling cards of lace and loops of ribbon inside the elbow of a downtown square. So we see the woman, right, introduce the character. So we see who the poem will be talking about. We see who the lace seller is. It's this woman, and we see where she is, right? She's in the downtown square. 32. The image portrayed in the elbow of a downtown square, line 3. What does it do? It presents visually a corner location and suggests the idea of busyness. The elbow looks like a corner, right? You can see a corner there, and so we can describe a corner as an elbow. So she's in that little corner, and if it's a downtown square, it must be very crowded, must be very busy, right? Bustling with activity. So it should be A. 33. The main function of stanza 2, and you can just pause at any time and attempt the questions on your own, just in case I'm not giving you much of a chance to stop and read questions beforehand. Just pause and attempt on your own if you want to test your own English B skills. So the main function of stanza 2 is to introduce the contrasting social reality between the speaker and the lace seller. So we see stanza 1, we see this lace seller in the town square selling cards of lace and loops of ribbon, and her mother before her sold American apples. So they've been hustling for generations. This person isn't coming from a rich family. They don't have a big house on the hill, we can imagine, right? So the mother used to sell apples, and now she's selling lace. No, We see a contrast as we look at stanza 2. This woman's concerns filter up through my dreams, while I lie bathed and folded in clean sheets. What a contrast from the dirty, noisy, bustling town square to bathed, folded in clean sheets. For she lies on one thin hot sheet, bed pushed up against the door for fear of kick down. So look at this person's sleeping situation compared to the lace sellers, right? The lace seller doesn't have such a luxurious setup. So we're seeing that contrast in social reality. Basically, one is poor, the other one is not poor, not so poor. And, while this woman in the second stanza isn't necessarily in any sense of danger, the lace seller is in fear of kick down, so she's not really living with peace of mind. 34. Which of the following best describe the speaker's tone? I would say D, conversational and engaging. We see a very conversational tone throughout this whole poem. This person is acting as a kind of storyteller, we're kind of listening to, albeit a one-sided conversation, right? There's a woman selling cards, blah blah blah, and then we have a little bit of a tangent, not really a tangent, but a bit of a backstory, which adds to that conversational tone. And then we see even something in parentheses, very conversational. This woman has a son, so do I, interjecting to show that relatability. And so we can say, yeah, in general, this sounds conversational. And it sounds engaging mostly because the person speaking can strongly relate to this lace seller, even though she's not in the position of the lace seller. So it becomes an engaging piece. And then, the conversational and narrative style makes it more engaging for the reader, right? The other options don't really work. You could probably say there's some cautiousness in the tone, but then casual makes A an impossible answer. I'm not seeing any wistfulness, even if you want to say there's some hint of regret somewhere. I'm not seeing any regret either. We could say this is kind of informal, but nonchalant wouldn't work. So D is the only one with two logical answers, right? Two correct answers. 35. The use of contrast in when I lie bathed and folded in clean sheets, for she lies on one thin hot sheet. Lines 9 to 10. Alright, we already looked at those contrasting lines. Is effective primarily because it enhances the notion of privilege and poverty. We can basically see privilege versus poverty in the contrast, right? 36. The main effect created by the poet's use of the brackets, so do I, in line 13, come back to this, is to do what? Bam! It's telling us that even though we have this contrast, even though the women are from different backgrounds, one being privileged, one being poor, one being able to sleep in a nice, comfortable bed, probably in a nice, comfortable home, while the other, sleeping in fear, not really having a good living situation. Even though there's that big difference, they do have something in common. So do I. This woman has a son, so do I. So they can relate to each other on that common ground. 37. In which of the following lines is the use of irony most evident? So there might be irony in multiple lines, but which one has the most irony? C. Except it was the police who kicked her door down, in line 14. Very, very, very ironic. We saw earlier up in line 11 that the lace seller is fearing kick down, but who would typically kick down people's houses? Gangsters, gunmen. But the irony is, it's the people who were supposed to serve and protect. They are the ones who kicked her house down, kicked her door down, right? So you wouldn't expect the police to be doing that. You'd expect the police to be going after the door kick downers, but they were the ones who kicked the door, her door down. And we see the except here indicating that this was unexpected. So it's just confirming that this is ironic. 38. Which of the following devices is used in letting the thick night in? Line 15. Line 15. So when the police kicked the door down, the thick night was let in. Literally, the cold breeze, the night wind would come into the house, but then the thick night would also be all the troubles from outside would come in. But we do have some personification here because the night is being let in as if it's a person, right? All right, take a look at these two questions. All right, 39. The function of the last two lines of the poem. When I think of her son, Lord, please cover the head of my own son. What are these two lines doing? Right? So the speaker is thinking about the lace seller's son, and then that leads her to think about her own son, and she prays a prayer for her son, which is invoking an instinctive blessing, right? So just by instinct, when she thinks of somebody else's son, instinctively as a mother, her thoughts go back to her own son, and so she prays in order to invoke the blessing of protection upon her son. Lord, please cover the head of my son. That is the blessing that is instinctively asked for by this mother. 40. Another suitable title for the poem could be, I don't like these questions, they're so subjective, but I would say Things That Bind, because we know that the fact that both of these women, even though they're different, have a son that connects them, that binds them, that allows them to have that commonality, that allows them to relate to one another, or at least it allows this more privileged woman to relate to this poorer woman. So the things that bind, that would tackle the deepest thematic matter of this. All right, next one. All right, take a look at this passage and check out questions from 41 to 47. All right, let's go. The main purpose of the opening paragraph, lines 1 to 3, let's highlight those, is to introduce the characters and setting. This is usually what the exposition or the beginning of a story does anyway, right? How do we see that introduction? We see, Arlene and Champ are introduced. Arlene and Champ walk to Kmart. The story is full of... so we see the two characters introduced. Arlene, Champ, they're at Kmart, and we see Kmart being described. We see what's going on. So yeah, we see the characters and we see where they are. 42. The writer's reference to Arlene's hair colors in lines 10 and 11. Lines 10 and 11 is effective as B. Contrast. Look at the lines. And before that, Champ couldn't even identify the color, of the hair. The only way Champ knows her mother's true hair color is by her roots, the roots of the hairs, which, like death, inevitably rise to the truth. Why and how? Well, even if you change the hair color, the very roots of the hair will show the true color, right? Because the hair is growing up from the roots. You can't change the color that is in. You can't change the color of the hair follicles. So there's a contrast showing that Arlene and her hair colors are false, but the roots highlight reality. So as much as you want to put on colors or put on makeup or put on something fake or put on something different, whatever is there on the inside, whatever is there at the roots, whether you look at it literally or figuratively, that is the truth. So contrast between what is presented and what is true, what is really there. 43. The writer suggests that Arlene is a mother who is B. Overweight, materialistic, and vain. Overweight, materialistic, and vain. Where do we see evidence of this? We see her stomach spills over the hip hugger jeans, right? So her stomach is spilling over, overweight. And we see here a fold of flesh, kind of the same image. And I think it says somewhere that she's wearing something 2 sizes too small or something like that. So that's the overweight part. We know that she is materialistic and vain because of the focus on the makeup and hair color and stuff like that. This whole passage is about this mother and daughter rummaging through the cosmetic aisle of a Kmart. And we see that she borrows a dress. And we see that she borrows a dress. She borrows Pancha's blue dress because she has a special date, right? So she's thinking about how she can, it's almost like a disguise. We see the diction kind of emphasizing that as well. For example, false eyelashes that look like insects on display, right? We see how much emphasis and thought going into choosing the right color. So yeah, it seems overweight, materialistic, and vain might be the only option you can work with. Wealthy, there's no wealth there. I don't know about beautiful. I'm not sure about that. You could argue that. I wouldn't argue for beautiful. Impolite, I mean, she seems a little cross, but I don't know if she's necessarily impolite. Unyielding, I don't know about that, because she does ask for advice from the little girl and so on. So I wouldn't say she's necessarily unyielding. So I wouldn't use any of these. Elegant, definitely not. Sophisticated, nope. Educated, I kind of doubt it. So we're left with B being the only option. 44. The simile in lines 14 to 15. Lines 14 to 15. The false eyelashes look like insects on display in clear plastic boxes. That's right here. It's effective because what? To be A, highlights through contrast the black eyelashes inside the clear boxes, right? Look at the description. Look at the contrast in the description. The eyelashes are black and then the boxes are clear, so they would definitely visually stand out, and they would probably look even a bit creepier or more unsettling to the little girl, the way you would have insects, dead insects displayed in transparent boxes or on a wall or something like that. And the other options don't make sense. 45. The reference to the brand name of the beauty product, Maybelline Makeup, suggests, this one took me a little while, but C, 2 and 3 only. The beauty industry is driven by consumerism which women must buy into, and specifying that it's Maybelline, that might be saying, okay, this is a particular brand that women would want to buy. So the brand name would encourage women to buy this particular product. And this product, since it's makeup, the aim of buying this product is to look more beautiful, right? And then 3 ties into this: to conform to mainstream beauty standards, such as the ones being set by these mainstream, these giant makeup lines. So to conform to mainstream beauty standards, women reject their own cultural beauty ideals. So whatever beauty you would have naturally, and whatever beauty that would be related to your own culture, that is rejected in order for you to take up the Maybelline. The Maybelline, I suppose, is I don't know if it's a more Americanized view of beauty, or if it's a European view of beauty, perhaps one of those. But we kind of can see the impression that this woman is taking up something that is not necessarily enhancing her natural beauty, but covering up her actual looks, in order to present something more mainstream. And I wouldn't go with one here. To be beautiful, women must literally put on masks of makeup. I don't think this extract is saying women should do this or must do this, but this particular woman is doing this and is kind of calling out the obsession with the makeup industry, perhaps. But I don't think it's kind of recommending that this is what must be done. 46. The effect of the mother-daughter dialogue is that it suggests that the mother is simultaneously affectionate and assertive. Even though in the beginning she seems indecisive, she does show some assertiveness around here. Well, you better learn and fast too. Now think, with this color, blah blah blah. So she's being assertive here. I think most of the assertion is shown in the last paragraph here, and then we do see some affection in, I think there was a nickname. Wasn't the nickname, it was the offering of a gum. Arlene slings out another stick of gum from her back pocket, rips it in two and gives half to Champ. I don't think this is a great question, but I think this is the only answer we could use. The others just don't don't work. All right, 47. Champ's description of herself as too busy thinking of things people otherwise dismiss, like parentheses, but sticks to her like gum, in line 22 to 23. Let's find that. She is too busy thinking of things, blah blah blah. So things that most people would disregard, this little girl just can't stop thinking about those things that would be unimportant to most people. B, she is preoccupied with small, trivial things which are insignificant to other people, definitely. 48. Pancha's dress, crinkled, sounds of elegance, and although it does not fit Arlene well, she does not care. This suggests that Arlene is happy once the dress exudes wealth and sophistication to attract male attention. She's going on a date. She doesn't care if the dress actually fits or if it suits her well. She just wants to give off this vibe of sophistication. She wants to get that attention. So she wears the dress, this very tight dress, and she puts on the Maybelline stuff and all. 49. Which of the following phrases best describes the relationship with her mother? Champ's relationship with her mother. B, dutifully obedient. She's following her mother around. She's, answering questions, listening to her mother. So I would say dutifully obedient makes sense. The others just don't really make much sense. D isn't too far off though. Warmly affectionate, but there is some affection in the relationship, but I wouldn't say that is the best descriptor of the relationship based on how Champ speaks. 50. The story reaches its climax at what point? I would say C. The mother gets upset about the daughter's daydreaming and confronts her about it, right? So they've been walking through, they've been thinking about which makeup to buy and stuff like that, and then this is the only small conflict that could possibly develop here. Champ, are you listening? Are you in La La Land again? Arlene has her arms akimbo on a fold of flesh, vexed. So this is indicating that there might be some kind of consequence, some kind of issue or tension between the two, but that's quickly ironed out anyway. Nothing else here indicates a climax or anything like that. All right, and the final passage, aptly named final passage, very funny CSEC. They do have a sense of humor. All right, read this and attempt the first 5. Okay, it's been a long video. Let's see how fast we can get through this last passage here. Where is this story set? At the harbor, right? We know this because the woman is patiently waiting in line, right at a gate. Is waiting for the gate to be opened so that passengers can board a particular ship, right? So they're definitely at a harbor. And it says here very clearly, at 6:30 the harbor had been a blaze of color and confusion, blah blah blah. 52. In the opening paragraph, the narrator draws attention to Layla's what? It would be to her self-conscious and anxious nature. We see in the very first line, Layla pulling the baby even closer to her body. That could indicate that she's anxious. And the baby was hungry, but due to her self-consciousness, taking out her breast and feeding the baby in public, she didn't want to do that. So even though the baby was hungry, she could not feed him here. So the self-consciousness would come in there. 53, the expression, a lazy deep sea nudging up against the land, in line 13. Let's find that. A lazy deep sea nudging up against the land suggests the sluggish sea pushes itself up on the shore, contrasting with the charged atmosphere. Lazy deep sea, that sluggish slow movement, right, pushes itself against the land, nudging up against the land. And we know that, and right before that we see a blaze of color and confusion. So there's that contrast between the lazy sea, just moving, drifting, pushing up itself against the land slowly, and the very, very active, colorful, vibrant people on the land. For the comparison of the description of the setting at 6:30 with its later reference to when the fishing boats came home implies that. So let's take a look. We start at 6:30 5:30. We start at 6:30 when, we have this blaze of color and this and that and smells and juices. So buzzing with activity and people. And then we get to lines 12 to 20. And comparing that to the later description when the fishing boats came home, what do we get from that? What we get is we see how much time has passed. So much time has passed that the busyness of the place, the crowd of people would have dissipated. The place has kind of died down. She's been there waiting for that long. The place is almost empty now. She's almost alone there. 55. What mood is created in the description of the approaching night? I would say gloomy restlessness. As the night approaches and the speaker becomes more and more unsure of whether Michael is going to turn up, she becomes restless and the whole mood turns gloomy. There's no excitement, there's not much optimism, there's just this anxiety, this worry, this uncertainty. 56. Which literary devices are used in the statement? In the gathering gloom, mosquitoes began to sing with neither rhythm nor harmony. So the mosquitoes singing, we have personification, right? In the gathering gloom, we have some alliteration in the gathering gloom, and we have some personification here, right? In the gathering gloom, but also we have some personification here also. The mosquitoes began to sing their piercing tunes. 57. It can be inferred that the most probable explanation for why Layla trapped Calvin in the warmth between her breasts, line 30 to 31, is that she anticipates that Calvin is cold and instinctively attempts to protect him. That makes sense. Look at line 30. She trapped Calvin in the warmth, right? In the warmth. Why would the writer say in the warmth of her breasts? The warmth between her breasts, if she didn't think that Calvin might have been cold. 58. The narrator describes the silent Layla and the woman in the blue cardigan like matchsticks figures in a large tapestry in line 31, 32. You see that near the end of the second to last paragraph here. The two women waiting, one with child, they were like matchsticks in a large tapestry. They were so insignificant, so tiny, in this situation that they seemed to be like matchsticks on a large tapestry. You can hardly see matchsticks on a large tapestry. So why would this description be made? It definitely emphasizes the insignificance and voicelessness of women dependent on men. They are there helplessly, hopelessly waiting on the men to arrive, and then they are described in this way that makes them seem so small, so insignificant. Definitely there's a connection there. 49. It can be inferred that the attitude of the lady in the blue cardigan towards Michael's absence is one of gentle disapproval. So she says, your man not show up as yet. Layla shook her head, glad of the excuse to talk with someone. I shouldn't worry if I was you. He bound to show up. He can't forget a thing like going to England. I mean, how he going to look when he wake up and have to explain to people that he gets so drunk that he clean forget he's supposed to be accompanying his wife and child to England? How you think he going to feel when he have to do that? She sucked her teeth. So there is some disapproval, but it's gentle. She's not really cussing out the man, and she seems to think that he will show up eventually. But the sucking of the teeth definitely tells us that there is some disapproval there. She's not really amused, it seems. There's no awe there, and she doesn't seem hostile. And last question, the last two sentences of the passage primarily reveal that Layla, let's check the last two sentences. Layla smiled, but she worried. She could feel her heart stabbing against her ribs. So definitely we see some apprehension. She was worried, right? Apprehension. And she felt her heartbeat increasing. Her heart was racing. So she was quite apprehensive, quite tense, quite worried, nervous, anxious. Yeah, that's it. That is it.